All right, so here we are in crunch time. 60 hours from now, we're going to have an idea who the next Prime Minister of Canada is going to be. We are now seeing the finish line for this election. Really, really exciting. We have some news. We're going to go over the nowcast model. So that is what we have in store for you today in today's video. But there are a few things I want to mention before we start. First and foremost, if you like what I provide about the Canadian elections, I'm going to be talking about the Australian elections in a few days after this is done. I'm going to be going fully on that. Eventually, I'll be talking about the Polish elections, Romanian elections, Portuguese elections, and others. Go ahead and subscribe. Like this video if you like it, comment below. Second thing is, if you are a Canadian political junkie, just want to see what two Americans think about Canadian politics, please go to the 11th province at my Substack. You can see the link down below. That degree that you see right there is from McGill University in political science, a master's degree. So I just love Canadian politics. Hopefully someday that would be my full-time job. So please go there if you like that. And finally, I will be streaming live on Election Day. It's already on the channel. You can go ahead and set a reminder for that, but I will be streaming live on Election Day. I'm going to be streaming live on Election Day for Canada and maybe for Australia. I just don't think there are a lot of good numbers people in Canada when it comes to breaking down a lot of the what's happening in the provinces and in each individual riding. But I think Anthony Green at ABC in Australia, no one can top him. It's his last election, unfortunately, but I will be talking about the Australian election. So with that being said, let's get into some of the news in Canada. So one thing that has come out since we spoke last time was the estimate turnout for advanced polling. So we had over 7.3 million people in advanced polling. Now, remember, in the last election, there were a little over 17 million people voting entirely. So we do see a huge number of those actually turn out. Now, if we're looking at advanced polling, in most of the provinces, it didn't really benefit anyone if we look at how we expect those provinces to go, except for Ontario. In Ontario, we do see the Conservatives having an advantage. Now, I wrote about this. I'm going to go ahead, exit out of this. I wrote about this on the 11th province. So if you want to read more about it, please go there and sign up. It's free to sign up to read the articles. But if we look at the advanced polling right here, we can see at the bottom here, this is by riding. So these are the amount of votes cast in early voting in the advanced polls, the numbers of votes cast per riding. This number on the left is the expected percentage based on the voting trend nowcast model of the Conservative support. So as you can see, as the number of Conservative support goes up, the number of advanced polls also goes up. So you are seeing a relationship between these two. Now, if you are the Liberals, there is one, I mean, you see a bunch of dots here, but there is one area that is very concerning if you are the Liberals, and that's this area right in here between 40% and 50%. So as you can see, you got dots all over the place, right? You got dots all over the place. If every single dot was along this line, this, which is our R squared, would be 1. And that just means for every one movement this way, it's the same movement this way. It just is absolutely linear. So you're not going to have it perfectly linear. So you do see in the lower percentages here, the 30s, the 20s, you see the numbers kind of scattered. But when you get to places where you see the Conservatives get between, let's say, the upper 30s to 50%, you see a tightening of those dots, which means, one, there's more of a correlation between those two. There's more of a linear projection, which means we really can see that, hey, as this number goes up in advanced polls, this number does go up in Conservative support, and those numbers are very, very close. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you look from basically mid-30s up, you can see that trajectory going higher. Okay, so as you can see, this is more of a flat line. And if you're the Liberals, you want this line to be absolutely flat. There's no correlation whatsoever. But the fact that between 40 and 50%, you were seeing these advanced poll numbers go up, that is a little bit of a concern if you are the Liberals. So the Conservatives do have some good news in advanced polls, but does this actually matter? In the last video and the videos before, I talked about how the Liberals have to lose seats to the Conservatives in order to lose government. The Conservatives have to grab seats. I don't know if the advanced polls will be enough, but we are talking about a record number. So Ontario might be a little bit more conservative than we think based on these numbers. We just have to see what the turnout is on election day. And that obviously, it could totally negate this. Or if the turnout is a little bit lower because we did have records in advanced polls, then this actually could help the Conservatives hold on to many of the seats, maybe claw a little bit into the Liberal seats. But I think the Liberals have really done a good job in doing well now in those ridings. Now let's go ahead and go over to the final YouGov MRP poll. Now, they're saying, and my projections are very close to this, that the worst the Liberals are going to do is 162. Their average is about 185, and their high is 204. When it comes to the Conservatives, their low number is 119. Their medium number is 135, and their high number is 159. So, as I mentioned before, and we're going to mention it today when looking at my nowcast model, is that the Conservatives, two things, they're important here. One, the Conservatives' best number of seats isn't overtaking the Liberals' worst number. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that it's because of that, it's going to be at worst a Liberal minority government. There's just no way as of these numbers that you can see a Conservative minority government. And when we look at the YouGov numbers, I mean, confidence in supply doesn't even matter because we see the NDP and the Greens really low. The Liberals would really have to work with the Bloc Québécois if it's a supply and confidence issue. Now let's go ahead and go down to the ridings. So they've made a few changes. If you remember my last video, I said that I questioned some of the ridings that they have. I still do, but some of them seem to have come back in line. Now let's go ahead and look at Newfoundland. Now, I haven't mentioned this before, but we really do have 3 competitive ridings in Newfoundland, which is really good on election night because we can get an idea where this election's going. Now, in my nowcast model, I have all these slightly going to the Liberals, but they have a number going to Conservatives. So they now have Central Newfoundland going likely Conservative, but remember in their last model, they had it going Liberal. Terra Nova and the Peninsula, same thing. They have this likely Conservative. We'll see what happens. Now, I do believe this South Shore St. Margaret's, they had it as Liberal last time. They've now flipped this over to the Conservatives. Everything else looks as is. Let's see, Cumberland, Colchester, likely Conservative. Miramichi, Grand Lake, likely Conservative. All right. Now we go over to Quebec. One of the changes they made is putting these ridings in the Conservative column. They were in the Bloc Québécois column before, but they're now in the Conservative column. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I can zoom in anymore. Maybe I can. They don't really have a good zoom in tool. Now, last time I mentioned that they were sweeping the island of Montreal, but now they're not. Now, all of a sudden, we see Alexandre Boulderisse's seat not going to the Liberals. However, it does show that the Bloc Québécois would win this. Now, this is a very, very interesting situation. This is Alexandre Boulderisse's seat. If the NDP survives with some seats coming out of this, which they will, this is one of the seats that everyone expects to be safe. This would not be one that the NDP would lose. But according to the YouGov poll done locally here, the Liberals are at 33%, the Bloc Québécois are at 33%, and the NDP are at 19%. Okay, that's huge. I still expect Alexandre Boulderisse for the NDP to win this riding, but the fact that they're not in this is still it makes me question the legitimacy of this writing by writing analysis that they have. But the rest of the island, Montreal, is going strongly for the Liberals. We also see Saint Jean now being a toss up for the Liberals. The Bloc Québécois were in the lead. So you are starting to see a little bit of changing one way or the other. So the Liberals lose Rosemont, but then they pick up Saint Jean. And so that's where we're at. When we look at Ontario, we haven't seen much of a change. One of the changes that they've done is they have Kitchener Centre. I think they originally had this Liberal, but now it's toss up Green. They don't have the NDP winning any ridings at all. They still do have Peterborough as a Liberal riding, but the Bay of Quinte is now back to the Conservatives. Now, if you remember in the last video, I talked about how they had one in Brantford and Simcoe North that was a little bit iffy. So if we look at Simcoe North, they now have this to likely Conservative. Then if we take this Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations, they have lean Conservative, which is still closer than I thought it would be, but they got those back to the Conservative mold. Now, all the rest of the ridings are pretty much what we expect and pretty much what we see throughout. So if we see Elmwood, Transcona, we do see that now leaning NDP. So they're even making a little safer with the NDP. And Kildone and St. Paul, likely Conservative. We go to Saskatchewan, there isn't much of a change. The only change it got in Alberta is now they've brought Edmonton Southeast back to the Liberal side. These are basically what I have in my models. Alberta is exactly what I have. Now, if we go over to Vancouver Island and in and around Vancouver, they still have Elizabeth May winning her riding. I mentioned that, the dynamics of why that might be in the last video. This riding here, I don't see how it doesn't go Conservative or Liberals. It is a three-way riding. They still have Victoria going safely for the Liberals, but now remember, if you remember the last poll that YouGov did, they had a few specks of blue in and around Vancouver. Now they have Vancouver essentially totally red. Okay, so all the ridings that we see here are totally red. So their numbers are basically in line with what a lot of numbers are saying as far as the overall seats. Maybe which seats change hasn't changed much, but we are seeing this solidification of Liberals at about 185, Conservatives at about 135. Before I go into my nowcast model, let me go ahead and show you the CBC poll tracker. Now, let me explain for those of you who are into statistics what they basically do here. So one, they take the average of the polls, they do it by province, go ahead and split that up into the ridings based on the redistribution of how the votes went last time, and they give you an average number. Likely, this is the polling numbers and one standard deviation of the mean. Minimum, maximum, 2 standard deviations of the means. Now, when it comes to my numbers that I don't do a minimum maximum of standard deviation of 2 standard deviations, because you get to the point where you're looking less predictive and you're just basically saying, yes, it can fall in this range. And it's like, well, yeah, if it's at 95%, it falls in that range. Okay, so for all the statistic people out there, I just wanted to explain that. But let's go ahead and look at what they have. Let's go with likely, because these are the numbers that I do as well. Well, let's start with projected. So you see that they have the poll tracker by Eric Grenier is at 189, the Conservatives at 125, Bloc Québécois at 23, New Democrats at 5, Greens at 1. Now, if we look at likely, we can see the Greens are between 0 and 2, the New Democrats are between 2 and 12, the Bloc Québécois between 18 and 25, the Conservatives between 109 and 143, and the Liberals between 166 and 210. So this goes back to the point that I made, that even if the Conservatives have their best day and the Liberals have their worst, you're still probably going to see a Liberal minority government. Now, of course, if you do the 95% confidence interval, you all of a sudden see a convergence here where you do see the Conservatives win. But this would have to be a historically great night for the Conservatives and a historically horrible night for the Liberals. Nothing in any polling or anything is indicating that this is going to be the case. But I wanted to show you the poll tracker for the CBC to give you an idea where they're at. All right, so as I've already mentioned a lot of seats, let me go ahead and show you where my projection is. So for the Liberals, I have it at 183 now. So you can see all the models are kind of using 183 as that number where we expect the seats. My model has that as well. As far as the Liberals' low count, it would be 159, and the high count would be 204. Now, if you're comparing this to Poll Tracker, this is only the one standard deviation, the 68% confidence interval. I don't go into the 95% confidence interval because I think that most of them would fall into that 68% because I don't think there are that many outliers. The conservative number I have at 128 with their high number 146 and their low number 113. Now, the reason why mine might be a little bit lower is I do show the NDP and the Bloc Québécois with a little bit of a stronger showing. So we'll see if that plays out. If that doesn't, that will benefit the Conservatives, but it'll also benefit the Liberals as well. As far as the NDP, I have them at 7 ridings right now, with the best they can do 11 and the worst they can do 5. Again, this is only one standard deviation of the mean, 68% confidence interval. That being the case, even at their best, it looks like not only the NDP are going to lose their leader and a lot of their potential leaders, they're going to lose official party status as well. There needs to be a total makeover to that party. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We look at the Bloc Québécois. They're the ones who have been increasing in the polls. They are the ones that have also been increasing in the numbers. So you see the Bloc Québécois now at projected 24 seats with a maximum of 29 and a minimum of 17. So a lot of those seats I feel are strong. And then the Green Party, now it looks like they could win the 2. The one that I have that is the projected seat is the the Kitchener Center seat and not Elizabeth May. So let's go ahead and go and look at some of the changes in the poll. So there haven't been many changes riding to riding. As I mentioned, we do have these Newfoundland ridings here that are going to be very close to watch. As you can see, Central Newfoundland. I'm getting all my ridings within Atlantic Canada mixed up here. Central Newfoundland is still the most competitive riding that we have. So we are going to be watching these 3 as soon as the polls close. Remember, again, I will be doing that live on election night. As far as what we see in the Maritimes here, we still see South Shore St. Margaret's going, though close, going to the Conservatives, as well as Cumberland Colchester and Miramichi Grand Lake. There isn't much of a change there. Same thing here. I still have Saint Jean going for the Bloc Québécois. So there really isn't much of a change. If we go into the island of Montreal, we do see that I have Alexander Boldris keeping his seats, and this one now not going to the Liberals anymore, staying with the Bloc Québécois. Bloc Québécois have been doing quite well in the polling recently. Now, if we go to Ontario, again, we don't see much of a change. We do see now Peterborough gone and the Bay of Quinte gone. That was the same case last time. Everything else is the same. Another interesting thing, even if the new polls come out, Hamilton Centre is staying with the NDP, as well as London Fanshawe here. We'll see if that holds. If that does, if these two, Hamilton Centre and or London Centre and Hamilton Centre and London Fanshawe actually do go NDP, I don't see how the NDP lose in Quebec. So we'll see. GTA has pretty much looked the same as it has. But as I mentioned, those early voting numbers, those advanced poll numbers might actually change some things. Now, there is a riding that has changed here, and it's the Sault Ste. Marie riding. It does look like a pickup for the Conservatives as of right now, but it is very close. This was Liberal yesterday. Now, if we go over to Winnipeg, I mean, overall, Nikki Ashton still looks like she's going to lose her riding. But if we go into Winnipeg, if you remember, yesterday I said Kildon and St. Paul flipped over to the Liberals. First time it has done that in the model. With the new numbers now, is now flipped back to the Conservatives and has been conservative most of the time. But now we're looking at Elmwood Transcona as being safe for the NDP. Now, remember, when we looked at the YouGov poll, it showed that it was now lean NDP. So maybe the NDP is breathing a little bit easier here. When we look at Saskatchewan, there hasn't been any change. If we look at Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, there hasn't been any change. We still have Edmonton Southeast as a close one, and we still have Calgary Skyview as a close one. And while at the beginning of this campaign, this riding was constantly showing a slight favor toward the Liberals, the last few polls that we've had in there, which are the most important polls because they're the ones closest to election day, we do see this going to the Conservatives. And then when we get over to Vancouver Island and in and around Vancouver, nothing has really changed. I still have Elizabeth May losing her seat, but I've mentioned the caveat that she wasn't the leader last time. She is the co-leader now. That might affect her results last time compared to what she might get this time. So I'm not saying that she's going to lose her seat, but she could. It seems like everyone's in agreement that Victoria is going to go to the Liberals, and Jagmeet Singh is in a position now that he might not just lose his seat, he might finish third in his riding. And obviously, if you finish third in your own riding, you cannot stay on as leader. And so we'll be looking at the internal party crises going on with those. All right, so that's all I wanted to talk about. I might have a video tomorrow. I might not, due to the fact that there just might not be much to report on as far as polls. If there isn't much of a change, I probably won't be doing a video. However, I might start throwing in a few Australian videos. I don't know. I've been so immersed into Canada. I've been kind of passively looking at Australia and seeing Anthony Albanese and the Labour Party on the two-party preferred. You're starting to see that go like this, where Peter Dutton's Liberals or coalition, they were ahead. And now all of a sudden, once the election's called and everything, that has just massively changed. I wrote about it. If you go to my Voting Trend Substack, I wrote about how Donald Trump is impacting both Pierre Poilievre and Peter Dutton. He's having this effect on center-right parties that are making them lose. So yes, the United States was the guinea pig for other people to say, no, maybe we don't want that. But I will be getting to the Alaska elections, Australian elections soon. So thank you all very much. Remember to subscribe, like, and comment down below. I will see you soon. Remember to do a reminder for the live stream. All right, talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.